Welcome classic rock fans to an episode of Beneath the Covers, and today I want to talk about this beautiful album which needs absolutely no introduction, of course. This is the 50th anniversary box set of Pet Sounds. I must admit it seems rather odd on a cold, dark, rainy British morning in November to be talking about the Beach Boys, a band that for me very much defined by an almost effervescent quality, bright quality to their music, including Pet Sounds, of course. It may not be thematically bright, but the textures, as I find them personally, uplifting. Overall, this album evokes an atmosphere of hymnal wonder. I think it's like an ode to one's journeying from innocence to experience. And it's that the poet Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. It seems to be journeying towards that. It starts off with that guitar, beautifully tuned at the beginning to sound like a child's toy. It's just a remarkable piece of work, and a work that positively aches with a sense of longing. Many argue, of course, including Rick Wakeman in his wonderful documentary about when albums ruled the world, that this is in fact a concept album. That all very much depends on how broad your definition of concept album is. It certainly evokes a very singular and specific atmosphere. In fact, Radiohead said they wanted to, with their wonderful album OK Computer, they wanted to evoke the same atmosphere of Pet Sounds on that one. So if the exploration of an atmosphere defines it as a concept album, then you could argue that it is a concept album. Very much in the similar vein to Sinatra's Wee Small Hours, which is very much seen as a very early album within the paradigms of masculine heartbreak. Of course, you could argue that Sloop John B is the blot on the conceptual landscape. Don't get me wrong, it's a fabulous number, originally sung, I believe, by, it's an old sea shanty sung by the Kingston Trio, I believe. But it was the brainchild, if you can call it that, of Al Jardine, who really wanted to beef it up a bit and sell it to Brian Wilson. Wonderful Beach Boys number, but it doesn't really fit in, I think, with the overall theme and moods explored on this album. I suppose you could say there is a sense of longing in this number to be home, but I don't know. I mean, it makes the album what it is by being on there, but it certainly does distract from any notions of this album being a conceptual whole. But I'm not here to talk about the album per se, I'm here to discuss the very enigmatic and rather misplaced album cover. It's an album cover that seems to be thematically disjointed and doesn't marry in with the whole idea of the themes explored on the album. However, the photo was taken on February the 10th, 1966 at San Diego Zoo by George Germain. There was a news piece that was actually published in the San Diego Union at the time saying that the group came down from Hollywood to take a cover photo for their forthcoming album, Our Freaky Friends. Which is probably why the album cover fits in quite nicely, I think, of course. Of course, the zoo owners were not particularly happy with the Beach Boys coming to use their animals for their album cover or for their photo shoot. And there were stories of the Beach Boys actually misusing or abusing the animals as well, including throwing things at them and all sorts of things going on. In fact, they were banned from going back to San Diego Zoo. Brian Wilson has recently said, very recently said, that he's never ever been back there. Of course, the Beach Boys sold the idea by suggesting that it was very much in vogue for groups to be photographed with animals these days. It was very hip with young people. And they evoked, of course, the English beat group The Animals, who had actually just done an album called, if I'm not mistaken, Animal Tracks. Al Jardine says the title Pet Sounds was actually already decided on when they visited the zoo. He thought pet meant petting, which had certain sexual overtones to it. Another theory, of course, is that the album title was inspired by the use of the dog barking at the end of Caroline No. In fact, there's even stories of Brian Wilson wanting a horse bringing into the recording studio. How much of that is true, I don't know. There's a lot of rock mythos and apocrypha surrounding these great albums now. Mike Love recalls that they'd already taken the photographs at the zoo when they came up with the title, and he insists that it's supposed to represent their own favourite sounds used on the record, their own pet sounds. See, it's interesting, Mike Love insists that the title comes after the visit to the zoo. Al Jardine says otherwise. So it's hard to know who to believe really on this one. Another theory, of course, is that Pet Sounds spells out the initials of Phil Spector. Obviously a producer that Brian Wilson not only much admired but wanted to emulate with this album, reconstructing that wall of sound, even using the same session musicians. In terms of Mike Love's claim for fame as regards the title of this record, in Brian Wilson's biography, Wouldn't It Be Nice, My Own Story, published in 1991, he says, "It was written that the title was inspired by Love asking, 'Who's going to hear this shit? The ears of a dog?'" Claim that Mike Love has denied. Although there's no love lost between Mike Love and Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson has gone on record to say he can't stand the guy. Also, I think there was a tendency from Mike Love to want to link himself with this album even more so than perhaps he should be, perhaps. I mean, famously, of course, he didn't like the song "Hang On to Your Ego," which was got an anti-LSD song in many respects, but in fact, obviously the title was changed to "There Must Be an Answer." I know there's an answer, sorry. Asher, of course, did not like the title of the album. He described it as goofy and felt that it did not represent or faithfully represent the very sensitive and intricate nature of the music contained on this record. And I must admit I'm with him with that. There does seem to be a disparity, as I've said, a thematic disparity between the album cover and the music on the album. Almost as if nobody really understood what they were doing. Of course, at this time, album covers and portraiture was becoming a lot more sophisticated. In fact, if you forgive me for quoting Wikipedia, Peter Doggett, the author, said, This album cover serves as a warning of what could happen when music and image parted company, songs of high romanticism, an album cover of stark banality." Of course, this album was very much inspired by the Beatles' Rubber Soul. They wanted to produce the perfect pop record, one that has no filler on it, which was in itself quite rare at this time. Paul McCartney has gone on to say that not only is God Only Knows the greatest pop song ever written, but that Pet Sounds was very influential in terms of driving him for the inspirational nous, I suppose, behind their next album, of course, Sgt. Pepper. Anyway, this is my edition of the album. It's the 50th anniversary edition with loads of live stuff and outtakes and things like that. No doubt I'll be buying a 55th anniversary and 60th anniversary of this record. I'll be paying up for this one until I am nailed down, I suspect. I'll probably be nailed down with a copy of this as well. It's interesting, actually. A lot of people say they feel it's a dreadfully overrated album. They don't understand what all the fuss is about. I can easily understand how people can feel that way. I would suggest that you just do as I do every summer, the first nice hot summer's day. Just put it on some quality headphones and have a nice cold beer and just allow yourself to become immersed in the sounds and textures and the harmonies as well. This was groundbreaking stuff for the time. I mean, you could do all this on the app on a phone these days, but in 1966 this was remarkable. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful record. You just drift in it. I must admit, and this is sacrilegious to say it, I'm sure, but I much prefer the stereo version to the original mono version. I find the stereo version much more surrounding and immersive. Anyway, that's my episode of Beneath the Covers for November. I would like to say thank you so much for being a Patreon of my channel and supporting me, enabling me, of course, to make more content. It is very much appreciated. So it just leaves me to say I hope you're staying safe, but more importantly, please do keep listening.